Hey guys, Nightmare Narrative here. So in 2004, The Suffering, developed by Surreal Software and published by Midway Games, was a commercial success. It sold over 1.5 million units worldwide across the PlayStation 2, Xbox, and PC. But when you hear the best horror games of all time, you think of Resident Evil, Silent Hill, and Fatal Frame. But never do you hear of this game making the list. Hell, some of you might not even know what this game is. Today, I want to shed some much needed light on what is horror's most underrated video game of all time. The game tells the story of Torque, a prisoner on death row for murdering his ex-wife and 2 children, a crime of which he claims to be innocent, saying he blacked out and cannot remember what happened.
I've been sentenced to death for murdering my family.
Inmate, is this true?
Oh, he won't say. Claims he blacked the whole thing out.
Shortly after he arrives in Abbott State Penitentiary on Carnate Island, off the coast of Maryland, an earthquake hits the island, resulting in the prison being attacked by unusual supernatural threats. After being freed, Torque attempts to fight his way to freedom while confronting his own personal demons, all while attempting to remember what really happened to his family. The game features 3 endings depending on the player's actions throughout, each of which reveals a different version of the murder of Torque's family. The Suffering is an action survival horror game in which the player controls Torque as he fights hordes of these monsters. Now, these monsters are frighteningly cool. According to Richard Rouse, one of the head writers of The Suffering, he said, "From the beginning, we wanted to stay away from zombies and the more tired horror cliches that everyone's had enough of, and wanted to move on to something that was more disturbing and more unique to this experience. It was also early on that we decided we wanted to have a theme for all the creatures. So instead, they weren't just this random monster or this random aberration. Instead, they're each themed after different execution methods that tie into the history of Carnate and all the various forms of execution of humans that have gone on there. So instead of zombies in this prison, the story team decided to go with monsters that look like different forms of execution that took place on Carnate Island, which I think is really cool, and here they are. Slayers represent decapitation, marksmen represent death by firing squad, mainliners represent lethal injection, noosemen represent hanging, and burrowers represent burial alive. Other creatures represent events from Carnate's history. Festers are the reincarnation of slave traders who ran their slave ship aground on Carnate, and left their slaves tied up in the hold to be eaten by rats. Infernos are the trapped spirits of 3 children who accused 11 people of being witches during the time of a Puritan settlement on the island. The 11 people were burned alive. Another cool gameplay feature was that players could determine Torque's future as well as his past.
There's good times and bad, T. We all want more of the good, but we take what we can get. It's worth it. Love, Carmen.
Unlike any other video game at the time based on the morality, here are a few of the choices that you got. In many situations, when Torque first encounters an NPC, the player will hear the voice of Torque's dead wife urging him to help them, and almost immediately afterwards will hear the voice of a demon urging him to kill them.
You hear me, inmate? Do you hear me?
Give him a chance.
Ah, to hell with protocol. Everything's gone to shit.
How Torque's actions affect his morality is usually indicated by the reaction of his wife, who will praise him if he commits a good act, and chastise him if he does something evil. Over the course of the game, the decisions made concerning Torque's morality accumulate, and the player will get one of 3 endings based on Torque's final morality level.
Somebody's missing from this picture, T. I don't want us to ever be apart again. Love always, Carmen.
Something else about this game I found really cool is that the music has its own personality being made from objects that you can find in the game. The composer, Eric Ahu, said, "I gathered up objects made from various elements, stone, steel, things that had long tones. In any given level, the music would be composed using only objects found in that environment. For example, in the prison level, rhythms and textures using struck metal bars, slamming a dumpster against a wall, and violent metal scrapes. In the asylum level, the whispers and cries of the insane were combined with the faint, sinister droning of the Victrola coming from Dr. Killjoy's office. In the cave, the musical textures were made entirely from the scraping, breaking, and striking of rocks. The battle with Hermes, who appears as green gas in the shape of a man, is scored using violent rhythms created from compressed air. For Horace, an inmate who died horribly in the electric chair and travels over power lines, the battle music is laced with rhythms created out of arcing electricity. So, this game was really cool. However, today the graphics don't quite hold up. So, here's my proposal. I want this game to get the remake treatment it deserves. With its horror contemporaries like Resident Evil receiving the graphics and gameplay update I want to see, The Suffering get the same love. The original Resident Evil 2 sold 3 million copies in the first few months in 1998, compared to The Suffering's 1.5 million in 2004. Then, in 2019, the Resident Evil 2 remake sold over 5 million copies by the end of the year. So I'm thinking that with the growing demand for good horror games, mixed with the nostalgia that some people have for The Suffering, it could easily double its original sales by selling at least 3 million copies in its first year. That's quite a bit of money. So, The Suffering was a financial success in 2004 that receives hardly any recognition today that it deserves. That is why it is horror's most underrated video game that I encourage you to check out if you haven't already. And unfortunately, Surreal Software, the people that made the original game, no longer exist. However, they were acquired by Warner Bros. Games in 2009. So that means Warner Bros. Games, please get on this remake now. I will pre-order the $59.99 right now. Comment below your memories of the game, or if you were just hearing about this now, what you think about the idea of getting a 4K Ultra HD remake of this cult classic horror video game. Thank you guys for watching, and sleep well.